Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself?
Hi. So today I really wanted to talk about the new movie, The Substance. Okay, that's the title. It's not Substance, it's The Substance, I think. Okay, so I'm going to give like a little recap at first and then kind of like talk about like my opinion, like maybe interweave them as I go on. Okay, so the movie starts by showing us this character named Elizabeth Sparkles, right? And so basically, she's like a dancer. She's on this dancing TV show. She looks great, you know what I mean? But she goes to the bathroom, and in the bathroom, she hears one of the producers or executives basically talking about her and saying that they need somebody younger, that she's 50, you know what I mean? That they just need somebody younger looking, better looking. He's super rude, just a massive jerk, right? Because she ended up going to the men's bathroom, and so she ended up hearing that conversation. So there's this scene where she's driving and she gets in a car accident. That leads her to going to the doctor, obviously. And so while they're checking her out, this younger guy, he's like, hey, like he checks her spine, even after the doctor already said she was like clear to go. He checks her spine and he's like, oh, you'd be a great candidate. And she's like, what? And so he gives her, I guess he like leaves it in her like pocket. So she gets home, she opens it, it's a note, and I think it said like it changed my life or something like that. And it was like a flash drive that said the substance. So she's curious, like most of us. She puts it in and she's like watching it, and it's like cute dramatic music where it's like you can be different and multiply yourself. Like you are one and the same, like kind of wording like that. Think those like I don't even know if you would say retro commercials from back in the day, but it's like do type of music. But either way, so she looks at that and at first she throws it away. She's like, okay, whatever, you know what I mean? But she sees this ad in the paper that says that they're looking for the next Elizabeth Sparkles, somewhere younger, more youthful, ages 18 to 30. And so eventually, I think it just kind of pushes her over the edge. And so she goes back in the garbage can. She pulls it out and then she calls this number and says she would like to place an order. So she ends up going to this location. Like she gets a package in the mail. She goes to this location. I'm going to try to speed it up a bit so we're not recapping the entire thing verbatim. But she ends up basically being told like she gets this box and it says like, food for the matrix, food for the other self. You have to change every 7 days. Like the activator, you know what I mean? She uses the activator and she falls onto the ground. Her back is literally splitting open. And then this new person pops out, basically. So we see Sue. Sue goes into the mirror. She's like looking at herself and is like, oh my God. Like, you know what I mean? She's younger. She's, her butt is bigger. She looks better. Her skin is glowy and soft and smooth, and her hair, and you know what I mean? She's a younger woman now. Now at this point in the movie, I was thinking that, okay, this was Elizabeth and Elizabeth is in the new body, but no, they are like two separate people. And I think that's like a big part of the movie. They're separate. They are not the same, right? I mean, they are the same. That's what they keep being told, that you are one and the same, but they're actually not exactly the same people. Now, a few comments so far. One, everybody's acting is amazing. I would say this movie is absolutely amazing. It was so good. I didn't know what to really expect. Like I had saw one picture and I was like, okay, I'm sold and I want to watch it. But seriously, it really is such a good movie. So you have this new person, Sue, now, and she's going around and she gets the job. She goes to book it. And in the room, obviously, there are these men who are talking about the woman before her. And they're saying, like, her nose, I guess, is too big. And they're talking about her breast. And it just was, it just showing you how it really is. I think with this point, we know that, right? A lot of men in high positions of power, or especially in the movie industry, they're not great people. They're very sexist. They very much objectify women. And yes, there are a few people who are not like that, but it's majority of them do act like that. A good majority of men really do objectify people. I'll never forget, and I'm not going to pull this study up, so miss me, but you can Google it. I remember they did a study on women, and I think if they were ugly, that men had the same reaction in their brain as they do when they see furniture, like as if they really did not see that woman as a person. That's a bit of a detour. Back to the main story. So as we continue in the story, Sue is definitely younger, like mentally, because she to me has more, anger issues. She gets more aggressive. And I say that because there starts to become some issues with Sue and Elizabeth. You start to see them have like a sense of resentment towards each other, right? When Elizabeth gets her body back, she's irritated that Sue has alcohol bottles or beer bottles everywhere. When Sue gets the body back, Sue is angry because Elizabeth's made a mess, or as she said, is lazy and doesn't do anything or watches TV. Like, it was something simple, like when Sue got the body back, the television was on something like Elizabeth was watching, and Sue like cut it off like she was irritated, like, you're watching TV, you're lazy. Maybe. It was just like that. We start to see the cracks very early on, right? And Sue also is not really respecting the rules. So the rules are that every 7 days you have to switch bodies back, right? They're not switching bodies, but the one who can walk around, like basically when they do the blood transfer thing, the one person gets knocked out and the other person can go about their day living life. They're supposed to do that every 7 days. And we see that Sue really does not respect the rules. It happens when she brings a guy over, which I think that to me kind of showed from the jump that Sue does not respect the rules, because if I know I have to be back at a certain time, I would not bring anybody over my house. I wouldn't do that because time, you have to be time conscious, especially for something as serious as what they're doing, right? But Sue brings a guy over and she thinks, I guess, that she could just ignore the time. Her nose starts bleeding and girl, she got to swap bodies again, Or I think that's the first time where she does take extra spinal fluid from Elizabeth. You're only supposed to do it once every 7 days, and then you'll get like a new syringe, but she uses the same one and just like refills and does it to stabilize herself. And then they switch back. Now we see that the ramifications of just doing it for a few hours changed Elizabeth's finger. Elizabeth's finger looked like she touched death. And looked at her finger. It was horrible. Her fingernail looked like it was about to fall off. And so we clearly learned quickly that there's big ramifications, mainly only to Elizabeth. The ramifications and the pain happens mainly to Elizabeth. So this is like her spinal fluid being taken out, her finger being messed up. And we kind of see like when she calls the number for the substance, they tell her, well, you're one and the same, so respect the rules. They're telling her to respect the rules, even though it was Sue who is the one who did not respect the rules and went over her time. So it clearly we're starting to see the big issues about to happen. So as we continue on, there's another moment where Sue just decides that she's tired of it and she's about to take as much spinal fluid as she can. Right? So when Sue gets the body back, Elizabeth has made a huge mess in the whole house. She's covered the windows. She's making all types of food. She's left a mess everywhere because Elizabeth is like suffering, She is struggling with, Sue taking extra time and making her life hell and changing her body. Like, let's get it clear. Elizabeth was never ugly. Elizabeth was beautiful. Even like, age aside, like she looked great. So it just aged her even further. And so Elizabeth, I think being angry, was making messes and destroying the kitchen and stuff like that. When Sue gets the body back, she's furious. She's like, girl, I'm done. You're not going to be getting this body back for a long time. She grabs a bunch of jars and brings them in the room, and she starts filling them up because I guess she's like, you're gonna be clocked out for a long time, Elizabeth. So cue us back to the future now. Elizabeth has now had the body. Not Elizabeth. Sue has now had the body for 3 months. You are only supposed to have it for 7 days, but she's now had it for a whole 3 months. Okay. She ends up having to switch back because she tries to get more spinal fluid, but there's no more. She calls the number and they let her know, like, you can only Like basically the body will only refill every time you switch. So Elizabeth has to be in her body again in order for you to get any more spinal fluid and stuff like that. So they switch, and when Elizabeth gets her body back, she goes to the mirror. Her hair is gone. Her body is not the same. Her body looks like she is aged like she's aged like 30 years, it looked like. Her like and so she's upset, rightfully so, because it's like, look at her body now. And I wonder if that's a message in there, right? The more you try to look younger, the older you will become. Because we see all the time with celebrities. Right now, there's a big conversation about Botox and fillers, and they call it pillow face. Saying because like the filler does not dissolve, right? So surgeons, I guess, thought it would dissolve after a certain amount of time. Now they're saying that it's actually not. And so it may migrate or move around the face. And so in that drive to try to look younger, you actually make yourself look older. Right. So an example of this is think Kylie Jenner, right? Remember how Kylie, she did some photo shoot or something and everybody was like, oh my gosh, she looks so much older. What happened to her face? And FYI, I'm not trying to bash anybody. So I'm not trying to say people look older or not. I'm going based on what the internet was saying, just talking about the idea itself. Right. And so I'm wondering if the substance was kind of commenting really on that too. Like, because Elizabeth, ultimately, it was on Elizabeth. She made this decision to do this, right? Because she wanted to look younger, because people were mistreating her. So I'm not even judging her for that, but people were mistreating her, moving her out, saying that someone else was going to get her job. And so she wanted to cling on to that. And maybe in the way when we try to cling on to something like that, we actually end up aging ourselves or making it much, much worse. I also wanted to talk about this point that I forgot, but at one point when Elizabeth goes, like when her finger is older and stuff, she goes, to retrieve the delivery, and she sees the older man who gave her the card in the first place, right? Now, he was younger when he gave it to her. Now we know why. He was using the substance, but he's older now. And she's looking at him, and he was saying like how the loneliness gets to you, and has she started eating you yet? And Elizabeth is like upset, and she just leaves, but I think it's like a lot for her. But I think that too is like a bit of reality, right? When people get older, the thing that I see all the time, I mean, now it's like even younger people, but older people always talk about loneliness. They feel lonely. They feel left out. And I think that's a bit of commentary on that as well. They're saying older people genuinely feel left out. That once you reach a certain age, people stop inviting you to parties or get-togethers or things like that. Even amongst family members, they just stop inviting you. And I think that could be a whole nother conversation on like ableism and stuff, because I think that's probably the root of it, why we mistreat people like that, and why it's such an emphasis on youth and being youthful and being young, because anything that's like any type of disability or anything like America's very ableist, so but I'm gonna get back to this main story. So after Elizabeth gets her body back and she's in such a terrible state, she calls the number and she's like, I want to get rid of it. Because they've asked her before. They've asked her like, okay, do you still want to continue? You can stop. They make it clear you can stop at any point. But she still felt like she wanted to be Sue, even though she wasn't really Sue, but she wanted to live that reality. But this time, Elizabeth is actually, she decides she wants to end this. She wants it to be over with. And so she gets this like syringe with like this black liquid. And I think it said like termination or something like that. And so she sits there for a while. She's struggling with the choice. She eventually does plunge it in Sue's heart. And she pushes it, but not all of it. She stops and then like she panics because she sees the billboard about New Year's Eve. And she even says out of her mouth, she's like, you're the only part of me that they still love. And it's so sad because it's true. She feels like now she's even older than before. So now she's made her body even worse. She's missed out on dates. Like a guy tried to, take her out on a date and she stood him up because she could not stop getting the image of Sue out of her mind. She keeps comparing herself to Sue and how Sue looks so amazing and how people treat Sue that, she wants to just stay in that spot. So she eventually pulls the syringe out so she doesn't terminating Sue. And then she does the blood transfusion, and for the first time, they're both awake at the same exact time, looking at each other. Now, instead of having a civil conversation, Sue sees that basically Elizabeth tried to terminate her, and Sue goes into psycho mode. I don't know if the substance gave them some type of supernatural strength, but Sue is on a whole nother level. Sue was karate kicking her. She was flinging her body. I was like, what? Like, that doesn't, even a basic kick wouldn't throw somebody that far. But girl, I think Sue got like the substance gave her like some type of chemical strength, girl. She was furious. She was trying to, I think she actually did end up killing Elizabeth, you know? She beat Elizabeth up. She's bashing Elizabeth's face into the mirror. She's throwing her around. And Elizabeth, you know, when she's laying there, a moment comes where it's like, you are one and the same. Like, basically, if one of y'all die, you both die. And Sue, like, stops. But I think it's, like, too late. So I think she did, like, kill her. I didn't know, like, I was thinking, like, maybe it was the time that she, like, kind of laid out there and didn't get medical treatment. Either way, Sue killed her. Now, after Sue kills Elizabeth, she tries to go back and do the New Year's Eve show, right? She gets there and she's constantly having these moments where it feels like something's wrong with her. And it's probably because Sue is either dying or dead at that point. I mean, because Elizabeth is either dead or dying. And so Sue goes to the bathroom and her tooth pops out. And then she pulls out the other tooth. I was really looking, I'm like, girl, why would you do that? I mean, I guess at that point, she was just trying to see if the teeth could come out like that. She pulls it out and both of her teeth now are out. When she smiles, it's like a bloody gummy smile. She still tries to continue, but she can't. Like, it literally is like she can't. She's falling apart, basically. And so even her fingernail comes off in the elevator when she tries to go down. She gets back to the apartment and she literally is going to try to use the activator on herself, even though she is not the Matrix or the, you know, main character. And so she does it and she's like begging, please come on. Like, you know, she is like, she's in dire states. Okay. She's just trying to have that moment on the New Year's Eve stage and by any means necessary. The thing that happens is she does it. And that's when we get the monster. The monster has Elizabeth in the back, Sue in the front, all type of stuff, just a mangled body blob creature thing. And I mean, it's horrific. It's something out of a nightmare. She goes to the New Year's Eve stage like as if nobody was going to say anything. Mind you, she put like Elizabeth's face on her face, like the picture of the poster, and like with a smiling face. It just, girl, it was like raining blood. So she gets up there, her arm pops off. People are screaming. They're calling her a monster. They're running away from her. And when her arm flies off, baby, it's just like a gush of like blood. Like, think of water holes, but blood. Just everybody, everything. I said on set must have been crazy. It must have been cold too, because actors always say like the fake blood is like cold because now you're like wet and cold and you got to redo retakes. I just was like, oh my God, everything is getting covered with blood. The hallway splattered with blood. The chairs splattered with everything you could think of is getting splattered with blood. And even then, you know, after all of this happens, she goes outside, her legs pops off. I mean, one of her legs blows off. Then she like falls forward and like splatters across the ground. And then it's just Elizabeth ending up on her Elizabeth star, you know, the Walk of Fame. Is that what it's called, Walk of Fame? But her star, she ends up landing there. And it just, that's kind of like how the movie ends, right? So she dies, basically. All of the characters of the Matrix, Sue, and then the monster, that's Elizabeth and Sue together, ends up dying. But it's such a disturbing movie while also being really heavy in topic. And now I'm going to go more into my personal opinions and feelings about the movie and my thoughts. Now, I know so far, like in between, I've talked about some pieces, but I also wanted to talk about other things that just were on my mind or that I wrote down because I was like, okay, I want to talk about this later. Okay, for one, I noticed when I got dressed, I felt weird. Okay, so I don't know if watching that movie did something to me, or like, because it was a lot of emphasis on them getting dressed, or not like getting dressed, but like their bodies and the way that they look and take care of themselves. And so as I'm combing my hair and washing my face, I'm like, I'm thinking about the movie in the back of my mind, which is so weird. It was so much emphasis on them being in the bathroom, and so I think maybe that played a role in it. But like literally, I was just like, well, I'm washing my face and I'm doing basic things. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like that's how I felt. Like after watching the movie for the first time, I was like, wow, this is so weird. And even questioning something like, am I doing this for me or for somebody else? These are very unique questions, but I feel like this movie just kind of puts you in that mindset where you're kind of thinking about everything that you're doing as a woman. Like, I also wanted to talk about getting older. Like, I'm 27 and I already feel it, that pressure that people put. The minute you are over 25, it's like people are literally, they act like you have one foot in the grave. Like, it's basically it. The language that we use is so dismissive of older women, and I feel like I see a bigger change happening where we're talking about ageism, where this conversation wasn't happening 5 years ago. But it just kind of like it's reflecting back. Like, I feel it. I feel that like as I'm getting older right now in this moment, I don't feel this way. But maybe when I'm 50, I'll feel like, oh, I wish I would have put on extra sunscreen to look younger. Or because like right now, I don't care. But I think that's because I'm only 27. Maybe when I'm older, I'll feel that even more. And I think that's what worries me. I don't want to feel like that when I get older. I don't want to think to myself, oh my God, I wish I would have done more to look younger. Or I need to get surgery. Or I need to do Botox. Or any of those things. And I know I'm not special, so it's happened to a lot of women. I'll probably have the thought or feeling, but I hope it just goes away. Another point I wanted to make, there was a point on the show where Sue was asked about Elizabeth, if she's ever watched Elizabeth's shows or like how she's replaced Elizabeth, right? And I think it was such a huge thing when when Sue shaded Elizabeth, saying, well, as you know, I'm younger. Like, my mom used to watch her. And I'm like, oh my God, that was such a big moment. I'm mad I didn't mention it earlier. But that's how women really be acting. And that's one of those subtle ways where a woman is shading another woman's age or shading her. And sometimes it is innocent, right? There are times where I genuinely have never watched something or don't know something. And it's because I was just too young at the time. But it's like the way you handle it, like when you're laughing at them. Her and the host were kind of laughing at Elizabeth, saying like, like the way that they were talking about her and the way they were saying like, oh, she's older was kind of weird. Like it was in a shady way. You don't have to shade another woman. Be like, oh, no, I didn't watch the show, but I've heard that she's an amazing dancer, or like my mother used to watch her and it was awesome. It's the way you word something. She was wording it in a way to like kind of denigrate Elizabeth. I also wanted to talk about the whole remember you are one. That was something that came up a lot on the packaging, etc. And I think it's a big message for women in general. When you attack one woman, you essentially attack yourself, whether older or younger. If you're a younger woman and you're attacking a woman because she's older, one day the tables are going to turn, right? The same way, if you're an older woman constantly berating a younger woman, you know how it felt to be the opposite, right? And so I think that's just like a message. Like when you attack one, you attack the other. You're essentially attacking yourself. When you're attacking women like that, their age and stuff like that, we all age. We all get older. We all change. You are attacking yourself. We need to stop that. Stop attacking yourself. Also, I wanted to mention this too. The whole dying to look young. I wonder if that also was a message too, because essentially as Elizabeth, even in the end, she had that one more chance to end it, to end Sue, to stop that. And she still chose not to. At that point, Elizabeth had lost all of her hair. Her body had changed. She couldn't even recognize herself probably in the mirror. And she still chose to keep Sue alive again. Elizabeth literally died trying to remain young. Overall, this was an incredible movie. It was incredibly impactful. As somebody myself who is a woman, I don't know, it just was so much. And I feel like I've made this video probably so long already, so I'm trying to wrap it up. But I just want to say the actors did amazing. Whoever wrote this, the producers, the directors, I know it was a female director. Thank you for making this incredible body of work. It was amazing to watch. It was amazing to watch and to enjoy. And I feel like it left messages within me that I feel like sometimes we all need to be reminded of. And so I want you to make sure you comment down below. Make sure to like and subscribe. And I hope you have a fabulous day. Bye.